I think we can take the first question.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Simran. The first question that I actually have to get the discussion just started is taking a leaf from some of the discussions that we had yesterday on the AMA with our secret Simba, who writes the Diary of a Single Man. And I think that there are other members as well from Floh that have had this question before. And this is about a common phenomenon that we're seeing today. It's a fairly new phenomenon brought in by the digital age, and what's happening with dating apps. And of course, I'm talking about ghosting. And enter in the comments below, you guys, if you've ghosted someone or you yourself have been a victim of ghosting. Tell us about it. Share your experiences. But Simran and Siddharth, can you help us a little bit? Is this really a bad thing? Is this something that happens a lot? Is it just a new age phenomenon, or is this something that we need to stop doing? And tell us how.
I don't think it's a new age phenomenon. It's the way even I did it 20 years ago, by the way. I thought the best way to really let someone know that you're no longer interested in them is by disappearing on them. Because, there are two things. You don't want to hurt the person. And you also, when you think of the different ways that you can communicate it, you cannot really come up with a really nice way of telling someone that you don't like them, especially when you're like in that role. It comes with maturity. It comes with a lot of self-awareness. It comes with when it happens to you. So, I actually ghosted my boyfriend of a year when we finished college, and I just disappeared on him because we were working in two different organizations. We were not in college anymore. But that happened to me a year down the line. I realized that this is really hurtful, and I really want to know what happened. Like, why did this happen? And that question always keeps nagging at you, and I wanted an answer. And I clearly knew that, this person who ghosted me was not interested in me. It was apparent, right? He's not responding to messages, not taking your phone calls. We used to work in the same organization. I actually wrote about it. And I never bumped into him even once. So that's how, he ghosted me. And then I realized that, I think we need to answer that question, why? And I think for our own sake and for the other person's sake as well, because when I ghosted my ex-boyfriend, I was like, hey, I better not bump into him. I shouldn't be in a place where there's a chance. I didn't go to parties. We had common friends, and it did curb my lifestyle a bit as well, and that's when I actually decided that I am going to do it. It is really hard. It's not easy. So I don't want to sugarcoat this. To meet someone that who thinks they are connecting with you, and you are wanting to tell them that, hey, this is not going anywhere romantically, is hard. But do it face to face. If you've met face to face, we must do it face to face as well. We must have that courage that, hey, I just don't feel that way. And there's nothing wrong. There's no guarantee that how you feel, your feelings are going to be reciprocated every time. It's not possible. And I don't think in these times, especially in these times when dating is so common, it wasn't that common in my time. People also know that there's no guarantee that you guys are going to be getting along till the 6th date also. Forget about like, a longer relationship. And I think we need to have that courage. Like yesterday, Simba said that, he actually had someone who actually outlined the ways in which she thought she didn't connect with him and how they will not be good with each other, which was really nice. Do it with grace, do it with kindness, do it with intellect. Like often when we meet, when we want to like say break off, and we do try to do it face to face. The one thing I think, and I can say that safely for pretty much all women out there, when the guy tells you, it's not you, it's me, I wanted to like kill them, literally. Like, don't doubt my intellect, tell me you're not interested in me and I actually buy that. So don't give me this, you're better and you don't deserve me, and all of that nonsense is really like a cliche, and I don't think it sits well with any of us who are bright and intelligent. So do it in a way that, and it could be that you might not even have a reason. You can just say, I just don't feel that way, and that's fine, because romance, love, and attraction is how you feel. You can't force yourself. And I think if you're honest, it might be awkward, but that awkwardness is very time capsuled for that hour or half an hour that you're with that person. And after that, it's only great, because everybody knows, where they stand with each other. The other person can move on. You can move on, because, both parties don't move on when you're ghosting. So I think it's like a awkwardness that ends up in a win-win. And those are like my thoughts. And if it's online, because online world is obviously more ongoing, you please be honest online as well. But the other thing that happens, I mean, absolutely be honest. Don't ghost people online, and stuff like that. You tell them that you're not interested and you walk away gracefully. But the one thing that came up also yesterday, and I've experienced it too, is that even when you've told someone you're not interested in them, in your own gentle, nice way, they still continue to ping you. Now that gets into the realm of stalking. If you've already told someone you're not interested and they're still pinging you, or if you're still pinging someone who's told you they're not interested, please don't do that. Respect them, because it also took courage for them to tell you how they feel. It's not easy to tell someone to their face. It's not easy to tell someone you like them if it's not happening naturally. It's not easy to tell someone you don't like them in that way, in a easy way. It takes courage. So respect that. And if someone's stalking you, please feel free to block them. You don't have to feel guilty about that, because you've already informed them that you're not interested. And after that, then they're getting into the zone which gets out of the ghosting and gets into more stalkish behavior. That's my 2 bits. Siddharth, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. And as a guy, what I realize, both as a person who has been ghosted and as a person who's not been interested in everybody that I obviously met when I was single, I figured that, one of the rules that I used was I want to have a very uncomplicated life. And like how people today are dating multiple people at the same time, there was a period of time in my life when I was in that zone too. And I just set up some rules. And within the ghosting realm, it was, if I'm not interested, I'm just going to be upfront about it. And and like Simran says, then I'm not really hiding from someone. I'm not avoiding them at parties or whatever. And I'm also going to do it with love. I'm going to, do it in a way that that doesn't necessarily, I'm not a jerk about it. The other thing that I found that worked really well with me, or sort of perhaps a consequence of this, is that a lot of those women that where we parted ways, well, actually introduced me to other people. And those became great friendships, and I might have dated some of those people. But I think it's good karma, and it's sort of keeps you in a very uncomplicated zone. So I think that's the only thing that I would add. And I think Ryan's got a good point over here in the chat, and he says that setting up rules is a must-have, and then sticking to them. Setting up rules is one thing. I agree, Ryan. And sticking to them is perhaps a little harder sometimes. But like Simran says, that awkwardness might last for half an hour, but after that you're really free, and it just feels like you're able to soar.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I'm reading the comments here. Talk to us a little bit about self-doubt, Simran and Siddharth, because I think that's something that a lot of us go through. And I think, that's a great segue into one of the other questions that's come in from one of our members earlier about looks, and, how important are looks in a relationship, and how much do they matter, and how much, should you be thinking about all of that while going into a relationship?
I think presenting yourself well is important. And when I say that, I mean grooming, making an effort to dress well when you're meeting someone initially, especially, because it also shows that you're respecting them, and you're because you have no control on the features you have or how you look. You're born with that. But you definitely have control on your grooming, bathing, smelling good, dressing well as per like how you dress, and that shows that your hygiene is good, because I think for women especially, we really look at the hygiene factor. And I think women, as as a gender, we are very conscious on our own. I mean, thankfully there are many parlors for men as well, and you see a lot of men now looking after themselves, and that's great, because I think it's also for you, more than for anyone else, to be healthy and hygienic. So that's like I say, a hygiene factor. And I think that is what is important. But the features, how you look, is really out of your control. So I don't think looks in the way people think that, oh, this is beautiful and this guy's handsome. I think those are like things that are not important at all. It's really how the person makes you feel, when you're with them, that actually matters. And, after a while, now we've been together 12 years, Siddharth and I mean, it's really like I can say that I actually don't really even think about how he looks. It's about how he makes me feel, and um, and I can't keep my hands off him.
No social distancing over here yet.
So self-doubt is something that I think we sometimes it's not even us who's doing it. It's really society, and how society projects things on us. So I'd say that really think what is important to you, because you are going to live your life, not someone else. Not even your parents sometimes. It's really you. I remember when I was really small, my grandmother used to tell me that, oh my God, your lips are so thick. And, that time thin lips were in fashion. And she was like, it'll be such a problem for you to find a guy. I mean, that's how grandparents spoke, right? Like they thought a girl child is born and her aim is to get married. And I mean, it became like the most fashionable thing now, and you have people Botoxing their lips, and they want bigger lips. So I'm just saying that it really depends on where the society is, and you have to define what works for you and what you are comfortable with, and then know that. And that has always been my compass. Like my life is lived by me, not by anybody else. People can comment, people can say whatever they want, but I have to have that filter to know that, hey, I'm going to live this daily. And what am I comfortable with? And then, the confidence comes in itself. Then that self-doubt also goes away when you know that you are the one who has to do this on a daily basis.
Yeah, I have a couple of points.
I'm going to bring in Tamanna here. So Tamanna and I have been chatting a little bit on the conversation that we're all having about self-doubt and about how this works. And Tamanna, do you want to jump in with your comments?
Yeah, sure. Just making sure that everyone can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you, Tamanna. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Simran and Siddharth and Deepthi for actually hosting this. Yes, I see you, but I know you can't see me, but thanks for the wave, Siddharth. The self-doubt question was actually a sequel to the ghosting bit. Initially, like Simran was saying, before the digital age and all, ghosting, has happened to me as well. And at that time, and even today, sometimes I think, am I borderline stalking? Am I doing something wrong that the person is actually not responding? So I give it 1, 2, 3 goes, and the 4th time I'm like, hey, I don't see a response, so leaving this as is message. But yeah, the self-doubt definitely comes in, because then you start thinking that, okay, are you, where is this going? Obviously nowhere. But are you doing something wrong? Yeah. So it's really difficult to actually move on from there. And that's where the question came on from. Now, I just want to add one more thing. This was done to me really long back, much before the digital age. And at that time, I was told that I was too scary to confront. And obviously I worked on that over over the years, and I still sometimes that one comment still kind of breaks my heart at times. So just that's where the question came from. So just a thought on that. So just leaving that there.
I, you know, one thing, and you guys know that I actually dated from the age of 16 to the age of 35, 36 even actually. And, I've had men also say things that were not very comfortable to hear, especially in long-term relationship. Someone actually told me, and, we were chatting on the phone, we'd never met. And he said that, I really doubt your relationship skills because you've never been in a long-term relationship. And it definitely derails you, but at the core of it, you have to know who you are. And I came back, and like that all night I couldn't sleep, because I was like, yeah, that's true, I've never been in a long-term relationship. I've been out with so many guys, and I've never really gone beyond the 3-4 month threshold with them. So obviously then you think that if it's happening with so many people, then something is wrong with you, right? I mean, that's also one thing, when everybody's giving you the same feedback, you think that something is wrong with you. In my case, the truth was that I'd never been in a serious long-term relationship. And I really thought, and I was like, I only became my self-corrector, and perhaps I have to thank my grandfather who raised me in a spiritual way for it. I really said that, did I want to be with any of these men? Did I see a lifetime with them? And the answer was no. And then I was like, then I'm on the right path, because if I can't see myself with them, then why even waste their time and my time for like answering this particular person's question that maybe he doubts my relationship skills. I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't want to be with those men. And I have that clarity. So I actually really went out of that thinking that, thank God I have the clarity. So, for example, if this person said this to you, maybe that is his individual view, that he finds it hard to deal with you. It's not like everybody's view, because that's not the feedback I got from like 500 odd men that I dated. Only one guy said that to me. And then I have to really see it in totality to know that this is maybe this person's view only. And have the maturity and the kindness to myself to not belt myself for something that might be that person's problem and not mine. So that's
yeah. I think it's a very interesting point that both of you brought up. First of all, Tamana, thanks a lot for sharing what you did. I think it certainly takes a lot of courage to do that. From two perspectives, actually, I'll dive a little deeper into that. One is that you're aware of it first, that this is what you went through and what the trigger was. And then secondly, of course, for sharing it. And I find that women, more than perhaps men, take a lot more, or tend to take a lot more of, is it my fault, on themselves. And I think it's called gaslighting. So men or other people will also make you believe that, like what happened to you, Simran, that, hey, this is your fault, when it's actually not your fault. But of course, you start thinking about it. And I think it's really important, man or woman, that you don't succumb to gaslighting, right? And I would encourage each of you to look that phrase up in the Urban Dictionary, because it is something that happens a lot in relationships. And and it's a psychological maneuver, actually. And I would encourage you to be aware of it so that you can avoid it. The point, taking a step back to the original question in terms of, looks and sort of the confidence. I think, the way I think about it is, foundationally, you've got to have respect, and you've got to have respect first for yourself, and also in equal measure for the other person. So like Simran says, if you're going out on a date, you've got to respect yourself that you want to be well groomed. You also are doing it for the other person to some extent. You might have never met them, but that still doesn't mean that, for a guy, for example, that you go with a scruffy, unshaven face. If you've got a beard, fine, groom it. But if you're like me, a clean-shaven guy, certainly shave before, heading out over there, wear a collared shirt, etc. Right? These are simple things that you can do to encourage yourself to be the best that, to put your best foot forward, which gives you a lot of confidence. So I think that, respecting yourself leads to the confidence to be yourself and to be comfortable in your skin. And I think, what I found really useful in terms of figuring out, how to build that confidence is that I knew that there is nobody who's perfect on this planet. And we're all, trying to find our way around. And I became very comfortable with that thought, which made me believe that, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't expect perfection from the other person. And if the other person has a problem with me, I mean, fine, let's just move on, right? I'm not going to belabor that, and neither am I going to, chase after someone or try to prove someone right or wrong if it's not working out. So I think it's, in summary, the foundation is respect, upon which your confidence builds up. I hope that was helpful.
Thanks. I can see from the comments, it's really sparked a huge discussion. I want to bring in now two people, Pallavi and Susanna, to talk a little bit about, the questions that you've brought up in terms of what are people looking for? How do you know if someone is looking for a serious relationship? How do you know what they're not looking for? How do you know if it's me, if it's not me? How do we know that we're a good fit? Those are the questions that are coming up. And so I've got Pallavi and Susanna. So I'm going to start with you, Pallavi, first. And I'm going to unmute you here. So go for it.
Hi, guys. Thank you for giving this opportunity to talk and ask my question. And so, yeah, I like the question which DP mentioned. I've been on the dating scene for a while. I've just joined Floh though, but I've been on other apps, and I'm one of those people over time has figured out that I cannot probably be in a casual relationship. Though I've accidentally been in one without my own notice sometimes, when the other party is looking for a casual thing and I've been looking for a real relationship. So my problem here is that often people express that they're looking for somebody for a long-term relationship, while as days pass, they sort of realize that this is not what they're looking for. And this is sort of disturbing for people like me, because we put in time and energy into this person. It's not easy to put, we all have very difficult careers. We're all occupied. When we give time to one person and you expect that they're also on similar lines in terms of their thought process, and after a while you realize that okay, they're not. This is very annoying, and it happens repeatedly. And I've seen this very often, including Floh. I've just been on Floh for a week, and I figured out this guy initially said that he's looking for a partner, like a long-term relationship. And after 2 days, he's like, no, I don't think I want to do this. So why are people doing this? Why aren't people so sure about what they're looking for? Because these people have been probably dating for a while, but they still don't know what they want.
Yeah, and I think
thanks for sharing, Pallavi. Before we go into comments from Siddharth and Simran, I also want to bring in Susanna, who I think has had either a similar experience or a similar question. I think maybe you'll be able to address them together. So Susanna, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'm trying to get this video right. But thanks, Deepthi, and hi, Sid and Simran. It's so nice to see you after some time. I guess, I do hear what Pallavi says. And a part of me wonders whether, it's because like this concept of dating is just like very recent in India. Like people are not as familiar with the concept and they don't know what to do about it. And like in the West, everybody has to go out there and find their partner themselves, right? Like they have to kind of be dating and kind of trying to find a relationship. But here, I guess everybody feels like they have a backup plan, and like maybe they can get their parents to find them somebody or something like that. So yeah, I kind of wonder, like, maybe we don't have established dating etiquette here, and what is your thought on like how that is evolving, I suppose, and I guess in a more practical sense, then if we're in this kind of environment where there's not these established rules, then how are we to get on a common page with somebody? Is that, have I been understood? Or I hope I'm not misinterpreted. I'm in no way trying to diss like anything about dating in India. I'm just sharing what, my experience or how I see it.
Do you want? Should I take that? So I think it's both of you have brought up really interesting points in terms of, if I were to paraphrase it, and please chime in if I've not got this right, so that we're like really focused on addressing the question. It's that people seem to project that they want to be in a serious relationship, and somewhere in that conversation or that interaction, that set of conversations, you get the sense that they have changed their mind, or the direction is going more towards a casual relationship. And so the question is, why does that happen? How do we identify it? And what action should we take? Does that sound about right in terms of the paraphrasing?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, great. So I think, one of the simplest things that I can say, and, having seen the dating scene really, to your point, Susanna, really evolve very rapidly in India and across the world. I think the best thing for an individual to do is to actually get to meet that person as soon as you possibly can. And it was something that Simba brought in the conversation yesterday in the AMA. So you have, quick set of, exchanges on an app. It could be Floh, it could be anywhere else. It could even be on a matrimonial site, or it could be someone that your parents have introduced you to, right? It doesn't matter what the source is. You need to be really clear what you want. And then you should very quickly meet for coffee, and just meet for coffee. Again, that's something that Simba suggested, because it's sort of a low cost, high return, high potential return, I should say, approach. And when you meet someone in person, you get to assess so much more, because let's say that this person is also looking for a serious relationship, but and you're having great conversation with them on an app. But when you meet them, they might still be looking for a long-term relationship, but you find that there's no chemistry. That's a bummer. The other thing is what you ladies have articulated, that, hey, I'm having this banter going on, and then suddenly, they've sort of changed the direction to something more casual. So my suggestion would be to really, as soon as you possibly can, do it very quickly, do it in a way that's sort of, practical from a logistics perspective also. So I always think coffee is great, even if it's after work. It doesn't have to be on a Saturday night at a bar or whatever, right? Just get that out of the way as soon as you can, because you will be in a far, far better place to assess the chemistry and the intent of the person when you're sitting in front of them, 2 feet away, after this coronavirus thing's done, of course. And you don't have to second guess what's on their mind, or you'll have more information and a better vibe. I think that's the first thing that I would say.
No, but I agree with what you're saying, but there is also like this, illusion of plenty that even both men and women have, by the way. It's not restricted to just women feeling that about men. Men feel that about women too, that nobody is willing to really give anything the kind of time that it deserves, because of this illusion of plenty. And only when they are done with that are they willing to invest that time. So to both your points, this is a new thing in India, and the switch has been so like drastic, right? Earlier, marriages were very transactional. You meet this person, you have to say, meet them twice or thrice, and you have to get married to them. And now it's like, hey, you can meet a person as many times as you want, and you don't have to marry them, So I think and in that sense, I feel it is a very hard time for single people in India, because that transition has been so drastic and so sudden that I think people are still grappling with it. And so when you say it is hard, the reality is it is hard. Now, how do we deal with it? Is one of the ways is please meet. Don't interact so much on, because what you're doing is when you're interacting online with someone, you're also forming these images about each other, which are like a by no imagination can you really imagine a human being as they are, right? But the thing is that we do form a persona of a person when we interact with them, and we've seen a photo, but we don't know who they really are till we meet them. So meeting them is one thing. The other thing is that, when you're meeting people, I think you also need to give yourself that time to know whether you want to be in a relationship with them or not, whether you might be wanting to marry and only meet people who want to marry, but that person might not be the person you want to marry. So I would say don't go with that feeling, the feeling that you should meet an individual with, hey, am I liking you enough to meet you second time, third time, fourth time? And then after that, am I liking you enough to think of a lifetime with you? So that switch has to be there, where you turn off the fact when you meet a person that, can I marry this person? And I'm ready to get married. Does he want to marry me? That vibe is also very unattractive, by the way, even for men and women. It's like when you go like, is he serious? Is he serious? If that's all you're thinking of, you're not really sending that and that communication through your vibe that you're really wanting to invest in this person and get to know them to see if you can marry them. So I think that is one thing that where we kind of are missing the point a little in this new scenario. This new scenario is hard. But we, like you said, every problem has a solution. And these are the few things that we can do to really establish first for ourselves that, is this the person for us? And then take it from there. And also, the other thing is that when we meet, and I really have seen that in many of my personal interactions and friends, when you have a good time every time, and the interactions are always very positive, then you also get kind of like into each other. So, keep it really positive. Don't think of negatives. Don't bring yourself down. Just think of having a good time if you liked your third, fourth date with this person. And let it like flow gently, because, like I said, marriage is not a transactional thing anymore. You really want to know that you want to be with this person. So give it the time without having that thing at the back of your head that, is this guy going to marry me or am I going to marry him? Because you also don't know that initially. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to take a pause here for everyone that's just joined us. I know there are a few of you that have just joined this webinar, so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're super excited to have all of you at the first virtual event that Floh is hosting as a part of this, very challenging pandemic situation. I want to remind everyone to stay safe, to self-isolate, use hand sanitizer. And I also wanted to bring in some housekeeping rules. So those of you that are just joining us, use the chat box. It's an excellent space to post your questions, comments, share your experiences. I'm connecting with those of you that are asking questions on private chat. So just check your private chat and you'll see where you are in the queue to ask your question to Simran and Siddharth. Don't worry if your question doesn't get answered in this webinar. We do have quite a few of them that are piled up. I will personally, ensure that I get Simran and Siddharth to write down the responses or do a call with you, whatever is, most relevant to your question. So put them all down there and I will ensure that they are addressed. Great. So we've had a lot of chat on the chat box about gaslighting. So that the term that you brought up, it struck a flame. And so I'm going to bring in Lalit now. And Lalit has a question for you about gaslighting. He says he's experienced it himself and he'd like to know more. So Lalit, I'm unmuting you. Here you go.
Yeah, hi Siddharth, hi Simran, how are you guys? Hi, I'm able to hear me fine?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, like gaslighting really struck a nerve. It's actually that, I was in a relationship, I was not much into online dating. So I will say that I started the dating scene quite late in my life. I'm 34 right now, and I started dating when I was like 30. But again, the girl whom I was with, was quite manipulating me. and maybe she was dating me for financial reasons. I don't think that I have any problem, or it's not that I used to have self doubt. I was a confident, young working professional. But after that bad relationship, I am into that self doubt mode, and now it really, discourages me from dating or reaching out to somebody, and I'm not able to get out of that self doubt mode. That okay, even if I invest some time, then will that turn out to be different, or will I be a victim of that gaslighting again? So how do I cope up with that?
I think, first of all, Lalit, again, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's a semi-public forum. There's almost 40 of us over here, so it takes a lot of courage. I want to acknowledge that. And I think by just doing that, you're already halfway there. So I want to compliment you on that. I'll tell you how I did things, when I got out of a bad relationship. And it's not the only way. It worked for me. So the first thing that I did was, I really read up a lot, and that actually worked for me. So I read a bunch of things, and when I say read, I would encourage anybody over here in any subject, not just relationships, to read books that are on first principles, not the derivatives. So what I mean by that is read the first book that came out, like say How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, right? It's a very cheesy book, but it really is the book that launched like 1,000 other books. And I read a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I've spoken about this before. It's a great book, Lalit, and I would highly recommend it to you. I have it in my library. I still go through it once in a while. If that doesn't work for you, what I would highly recommend is actually going for counseling. And I've been to counselors many times. We've been together for couples counseling. And I say this because I think, there seems to be, again, a stigma in our society against counseling. It's reducing a lot. But I think in people who were born in the 80s, it still is a bit of a stigma. People who are born in the 90s seem to have very little problem with it. And people who are born in the 70s don't have a problem with it. So I think it is, and I don't mean to make light of this issue, right? I think gaslighting comes from psychological manipulation. And the way to overcome that, the foundational way to overcome that is to just know yourself better. And that's a lifelong process. The quickest way to do that is read up about it, do the exercises that perhaps the books that you might pick up suggest that you do, and speak to a counselor. There's absolutely nothing wrong in sort of getting a second opinion. And yeah.
And the other point I want to make here, Lalit, and even to someone who wrote about heartbreak, that they've had so much heartbreak that they really they fear now trying to even get into back into meeting people.
Yeah.
The reality is that we really attend to wounds that we get on our body, but we never attend to wounds that we get in our heart, and they are also very powerful, but we never give them that importance. And I think we must. If we're actually raised also that way. This is nothing. Keep moving. Keep moving. No, you have to attend to the wounds of the heart as well, and anything that something like this that touches your heart. Sometimes even it's soul shaking. Sometimes, and I think we need to attend to it so that we can heal from it. Because otherwise, you'll always have a fear of chafing that wound. And I think. Healing comes from self-awareness, self-love, counseling. All of these things really help you heal, because what happens also is that if you're not healing, you're also going to get into a pattern, and it's sometimes even self-inflicted. You're asking for it because that's the way you think it'll turn out, because you've not really healed from that wound. So my suggestion would be to give your feelings a lot of importance, especially feelings of hurt, which we tend to put under the carpet. I think that's a really bad approach that we've been raised to, live with, but it's wrong. We should address them just like we address any wound that has hurt us.
So Simran, I mean, really, to be really honest with you, since I have brought up that topic, I really, would not, since I have brought up that topic, I would not, shy behind it. because yes, there was a time when I had trouble working, I had trouble concentrating because of that incident. So yes, I was visiting a psychiatrist. So I did that. I mean, it's still a taboo in India, and people think that maybe if you say psychiatrist, people think that you have some problem or you are mad, because that's how we have things in India, unlike the Western countries. So I have been consulting a psychiatrist, and I again would not shy away that she actually said that to get back in the dating scene, try organic modes like Flow, unlike Tinder and other app where ghosting is actually quite real. So my psychiatrist was the one who introduced me to Flow, and that's how I came here. To be really honest with you.
Yeah, and I think again, the fact that these are deep wounds, some of them, they take a little bit of time to get to the bottom of, and you want to eradicate them from the root, and you don't want to just superficially uh, cut the cut the top off, but actually have the foundation still gnawing at you somewhere in your subconscious. So I think it is a tough thing. uh, it's not something that happens. It took me the better part of 3 years, I think, to get over what I had gone through, and that was with like a remarkably strong resolve to get over it. I mean, I think I'll share a few things that I did, which I think helped me again. uh, and everybody's case is different, but I'll tell you what helped me. So one was that I resolved that I was going to get out of this funk, right? And the first step that I did is that I said that, hey, let me look at what I've accomplished in my life. And I had a good set of accomplishments. So I said, okay, this is not so bad. I started working out. I started, getting fit, and physically, I was feeling really good about myself. And the third thing that I did was meditation, and I think that really helped. I'd done a few courses in Vipassana, and I think that really helped. So that worked for me. Those three things really worked for me. The first one is really important because you've got to first make that promise to yourself that you're going to get out of this situation. And it's a much longer conversation, but I think you're on the right track. And as long as you sound like you're determined to get out of this, I think you will be in a much better place. Just keep at it, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Simran.
Thanks, guys. I just want to say I love how this is going. I really enjoy the community engagement. This is so wonderful. Our next question comes from Kanchan, and it's bringing us back to the conversation that we started with ghosting, and a little bit about how that's moved in terms of what we're talking about right now with investing time in people, and then not knowing whether they're going to invest back. So I'm gonna bring Kanchan on here to ask her question. Kanchan, you can also turn on your video if you want to, yeah?
Hey, hi Simran. Hi Siddharth.
Hello.
Jen.
Am I audible?
You
Yes.
are very audible.
Yes,
Yes.
It's so good to see you all after the Goa trip. It is just bringing back a lot of memories, the amazing conversations that we had. Hey, so I want to bring up the ghosting conversation again. So a couple of times it has happened that when we start investing time in a guy who has been, trying to take you out for coffee. So I had this fear now that I've met someone really amazing recently, but I had this fear if I start investing time in the person, he will actually back off, and then I don't know what to do, because then there's a lot of anxiety, there are a lot of emotions which run, and then that gets a bit. I know. I think I just panic. So, what's your thought on that? Like, does it happen too often that um, when you invest time, the person in front of you just backs off?
I think so.
Is it too scary for a guy?
That's what happened once.
It happened a couple of times, so now I'm afraid. So I don't know how to handle the situation.
If she actually wants to know your opinion, so why don't you go first?
I mean, I think my opinion is, always sort of be forward, take a step. It's better than trying to play any games or trying to second guess, right? um, I mean, I think, I mean, I'll talk about how we met, right? I mean, I was not interested in a serious relationship when I met Simran the first time. And I told her that right up front, before I even held her hand. I said that, listen, I'm not interested. I just want you to know that this is where I am. And she's like, what the, like, who wants to marry you anyway, dog? And then, of course, here we are. So I think, you can't really predict. But what really got me attracted to Simran over many weeks, months, and then a couple of years was the fact that she was always upfront about how she felt about me and how she was attracted to me, and that was it was very. What I liked about that was the purity of her thought and also her confidence, a combination of both of those. And the purity is very important to assess, and I think you can only do that when you hang out with the person in real life, where you're going out on dates, you're getting physical, etc. There are many sort of micro inputs that you will get and you will also give, and I think they're very difficult to fake. So I'd say that my approach would be to take sort of the forward step. You can take it at a reasonable pace. You don't have to put all your cards out over there on the table on the first date. I mean, it sounds like it's gone somewhere, but you don't have to start sort of taking it too far. But I think you sort of take it at least to the next date, right? And the next date, and then in that set of interactions, I think there's conversation, there's the physical aspect, and I think both of those are equally important. And in those interactions, you and he will sort of figure out whether this has wings to fly or otherwise. So that's my sort of take.
And the other thing that I would suggest, and this is for all of you actually, there will be nervousness, which is good, but don't have fear. Because when you like someone, it is so powerful. And who doesn't like being liked? Even if they're not interested in you romantically, when you tell someone that you like them, they feel good. I think it's if you just look at the emotion in itself, and this thought came to me because of purity, and I think a positive emotion of liking someone is so pure, and it should be pure. You should not be belting yourself to like someone. It should be pure, be true to yourself. You will have nervousness, but don't have fear, because when you go with fear, nothing works. And I'll give you analogies from your work. When you do something with nervousness and you're prepared and you're confident, mostly that thing goes fine at work, right? It might be a presentation, it might be a sales deal that you're trying to close. A little bit of nervousness is good, but because you're an expert there, and you know that you know what you're doing so well, and it's absolutely like up your sleeve, you do a good job. Take that analogy for relationships as well. If you know that your feeling is absolutely pure and it's true, nervousness is good, but don't go with fear, because when you go with fear, you really mess up stuff, and it happens to, I mean, in anything, feel the fear and do it anyway, is a proverb, but I would say don't be fearful. I don't think fear is gonna help build relationships. I don't think anything born of fear will have a good foundation.
Yeah. Does that help address your question, Kanchan?
Kanchan, you can respond on chat or on voice. I can unmute you. Kanchan, you're unmuted. You want to respond?
Yeah. So absolutely. It's very important to be fearless. I will try my best to not let the past experiences hamper this one.
Exactly.
Great. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Super. Guys, so we have just a little bit of time left. Please put all of your questions on the chat box, and I'll ensure that Simran and Siddharth get back to you. Maybe we'll do one more of these. Yeah, Simran's nodding yes, so my job is done. I wanted to bring you guys to one of the questions that I think is a good way to, to summarize what we've discussed today and also conclude this discussion, which is, you guys have been married for such a long time, you've known each other forever, and you also started Floh, which is all about bringing people together. So we had a question from one of the members, which was, what is the most important relationship lesson that you can share with us? And I think that's a very deep and very broad question, but share some nuggets of your wisdom with all of us. I think that would be something that would be useful to everyone.
That was not even asked. He's getting all nervous. Like, what should he say?
Nervous, so please.
No. Relationship lesson that I would, and I've said this before in some question that I answered, that, every relationship needs effort. And, sometimes it is, like, say, for example, with your parents also, because as soon as you become a person with your own opinions and your thoughts and your exposure, you need to work towards keeping each other abreast of what's going on, whether it's your parents, your siblings, even your friends, and this relationship is no different. And I think as individuals, we're exposed to many things. Now, we've been together 12 years, and we make sure that we communicate as to where we are very honestly in our heads, what's going on, what are we exposed to. That is really important. The key is to keep communicating with each other as to where you are. I mean, in the evening, we actually, Siddharth hates me watching TV. We have to talk for a minimum of half an hour with each other, and no screen, nothing, just really like chatting and bringing each other up to date with what's going on in our heads. And I think that's something so beautiful that I think all of us need to do, give each other that time. So my biggest lesson to you guys is, it is an effort, in the sense, when I say effort, of keeping each other informed of where you are, what is going on in your head, what are you getting exposed to. So that honest communication, and that's the only effort, because after that, it's really easy, because when you're with the right person, and I think now we also have the choice to think that we're with the right person. Nobody's forcing us to marry anyone. We take that call. It really becomes very easy to live life, to keep the romance also going. Of course, you have to keep bringing in interesting things that you do together, surprises and little things. And I wouldn't get into that, but I think communicating where you are in your head is really a key, and on a very, very regular basis.
Yeah, I'll build on that. And I'd say that, every one of us individually is going through our own journey, and our journeys have different trajectories. And like Simran says, that communication helps the other person know what trajectory you are on and what trajectory they are on. And sometimes those trajectories match and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And if they do, fine. If they don't, fine. Because as long as there's an understanding that there is a change that is happening, a transition, I think you're in a much better position then to handle it. And people go through a few big transitions in their lives. You could go through a transition of moving to a new city. When you get into a relationship, it's a big transition. When you get married, that's a massive transition. When you become parents, that's a massive transition. When you shift jobs, there's a big transition over there. And I think the fact is that at each one of these points, some of them are more impactful, like becoming a parent is perhaps more impactful than switching a job. They're both impactful, but in my experience, I've done both. I think being a parent is more impactful as a transition. And so that communication is really important. I'd add two more things to that. I think every relationship certainly a romantic one, but also professional relationships, your relationships with your siblings, your parents, your friends, has to be built on the foundation of respect. And you have to know that that respect is there, and it's not something that can be faked. Again, it is something that you have to constantly be aware of, and you have to constantly be communicating about, and you have to also constantly be setting boundaries. There was a question earlier, I think, in terms of setting boundaries, and those boundaries are very important, even after you're married for a long time. So I'd say that the boundaries help you respect yourself and respect each other. And the last point that I'd want to make is that it's a constant work in progress. And all of you are obviously at Floh because you're single. You're hoping to find that special someone. We're hoping that we can be the ones who help you find that special someone. But that's still just the first step in a much longer evolution that you will experience. And that evolution is something that requires an investment, and it needs to be a priority. The minute it becomes a priority, then you're already on a good footing. The minute a person, could be the man, it could be the woman, it could be anybody, starts taking things for granted, I think you're already on a slippery slope. So that investment and that constant awareness of of this being a lifelong journey, and without really necessarily even a very specific destination, right? It is just that, okay, we've committed to each other, and we're gonna write this for the rest of our lives. So I think that's an important aspect to commit to for both people. And I think these are the conversations ideally you can have before you get married. I don't think we had such deep conversations before we got married, but we had a lot of conversations. We spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke, and it wasn't about where are we buying this piece of art from, or what the next gadget is that we're going to buy. I don't think either of us give a shit about that.
Yeah.
It was more about ourselves, our experiences, and deeper stuff, rather than the sort of mundane stuff. And just the fact that the quality of conversation was very high was enough, I think, for both of us to say that, okay, I think we're not going to be able to answer all the questions, but at least we're on the same page in terms of what we like to talk about, and we never get tired talking about those things. So I think those are some of the signs that perhaps are also indicative of something that's built on a strong foundation. I hope that helps. I mean, I know it's sort of gone all over the place a little bit, but it's what I've thought about a lot. It's what I think about a lot. And like I said, I don't take anything for granted. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and as someone that works closely with both Simran and Siddharth, I can tell you guys, I see it on an everyday basis. They do talk and laugh. I mean, it's adorable. It's also kind of sad as a single person.
Both, right?
Yeah, but great advice. And I think for those of us going into relationships or getting into relationships, it's really important to know what to look for, and also how to know when you found it. And so I think Tamanna loves the nugget. Thanks, Tamanna. Great. So I think that brings us to the end of this conversation. Simran, you've got a lot of blog suggestions, a lot of writing that's coming your way. For everyone that participated in today's webinar, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories, for silently observing. All of these play a really big role in bringing us together as a community, helping us to do these kinds of Floh events, even though we can't meet in person, #social distancing. It's great that we can still connect at this deep level, even virtually. Please, if you have the time and if you've enjoyed this conversation, rate the Floh app 5 stars on Play Store or on the App Store. You can follow us on social media and look for some of these clips from this conversation. Your favorite nuggets from Simran and Siddharth will be up for you to see a little later. And so you can look at Floh Network. I've posted it in the comments. Follow us on social media. And we will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. with Pragya. So you can do some stretching. We're going to be doing some yoga. It's the best kind of yoga workout for you to do. Pragya is a published author, one of our Floh alums, and she's going to be sharing her journey and also some great stretches for all of us. That's at 11 a.m. Check your Floh app on the events tab. You'll be able to register and log in from there. Thank you all so much for participating in this, and have a good evening. Stay safe, hand sanitize. Bye. Drop your questions in the question box below. Comments if you have them. We'll keep this on for a little while longer just to collect all of your feedback. And you can always DM me. My number is available. Text me, WhatsApp me if you have anything else that you want to let us know. Yeah? Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Look at you.